All right, so we're going to look at some stuff in the calculator. We're going to do like kind of like a little quick tour through the calculator because there's some stuff that y'all haven't done that we are going to be using starting today. So we're going to start with this page that says the y equals menu. And again, I know you haven't used the calculators. We're going to try and make you feel a little more comfortable. And some of this stuff you're going to think, why would I do this? Why wouldn't I just solve it? And maybe you would. But this is another tool that you have available to you. So we're going to learn how to use this tool so that when we really need it, you're like a ninja assassin, like, at using it. I don't know what I just said anyway, but it's going to be on YouTube, so here we go. All right, so the y equals menu. So let's talk a little bit about these buttons. So these buttons, all these buttons up here at the top, they deal with graphing and like looking at values. And this stuff up here, this is why we use the calculator. Okay, so in y equals, so if I hit the y equals button, this is where I put equations. Okay, so let's zoom in here. This is where I will put equations. So anytime I'm using an equation, this is where I'm going to put it. Okay, so if they give me 8x plus 2 equals 130, this is where I'm going to put it. Okay, and right now this is maybe not so necessary, but when we start doing variables on both sides, we start doing more complicated equation families, this is going to be really important. Okay, so this is where we enter the graphs. Okay, the window button, so let's say I look at this graph and maybe I want to see something else on here. The window is going to allow me to change what the screen looks like. So right now, by default, it goes 10 in every direction. In this window area, I can change what it looks like, what the graph looks like. Okay. Zoom is another way that I can change what the graph looks like, and there's really only a couple of these that we use. We use Zoom 6. Zoom 6, if we get the window settings kind of messed up, Zoom 6 will turn it back to the default. And then when we start doing scatter plots, we do Zoom Stat. And that just kind of focuses in on the points that we entered. But that's pretty much all we use Zoom for. Okay. Trace allows us to actually literally trace the line. So we can move, if we move the arrows left and right, we can actually move up and down the line. If we have two lines, we can move between them. And we actually do have a second line, we just can't see it. So we can move between them. Okay? And then graph just lets us look at a picture of the graph. Okay, now, so all the buttons by themselves are about graphing. Now, there's two of them specifically that are also about a table. So if I hit second graph, you see how it says table above it? It'll give me a table of values. And the calculator will create that table of values for me. So instead of me going, okay, well, what did I have? 8. If I plug in a 0, 8x plus 2 is 2. If I plug in a 1, it's 10. The calculator does all that for me. I don't have to do any of that math. So it'll make this table for me. I can also, so since I've got a table, and I can scroll up and down the table, and I can scroll as far as I want to. There's a couple other things I can do with it. Now, when I'm in the y columns, if I scroll up, it'll show me what equation I put, but I can't scroll past that. I can only scroll up when I'm in the x column. Now I can scroll down in the y column, but once I hit y1, boop, it stops me right there. Okay, so I can scroll up this way. Does that make sense? And then I can move between my two values, and I can look at what the values are. This is useful. It's useful to be able to look at it because sometimes when the values get big enough, they turn into scientific notation. You can't read them. But so, like for example, I'm just going to do this really quick. You see how it looks like scientific notation? But if I actually click on if I select it, down here it'll show me what the actual value is. You see what I'm saying? So if the numbers get really humongous, I can see what their value is by clicking on it and looking at the bottom. Okay? Okay, so this is my table. I can also change my table settings, which I just kind of did. So table, and then over here, so you remember how this button changed my window settings? Well, if I hit second window, it changes my table settings. Now, the most important one, the table start. So let's pretend I want to jump. So they're asking me, what if x is 547? Well, I don't want to scroll down to 547. I don't have time for that. I have 55 minutes to complete the test, so I got to go faster. But I can put 547, hit second graph to go into the table, and it'll jump me right to that row. So I can jump around the table more easily. Okay? If I want to go back so that I'm back at 0, I just hit second window, hit 0, and then I'm back at 0 as my starting value. So it allows me to jump around the table, which is great when I have multiple choice answers, and I just want to see whether those answers are right. I can jump right to each of the 4 answers and see which one matches. Okay? So these are kind of our basics. So I want you guys to actually try entering this. So the equation we're going to use is 8x plus 2 equals 130. We're going to put that. So when are we going to use this? If I see y equals in an equation, if I have variables on both sides of the equation, if they ask me to solve an equation, and when I do Pythagorean theorem, which we're not going to do as much this year because that was an 8th grade skill. Well, when we do it, the left side of your equation goes in y1 and the right side goes in y2. So in this case, I'm going to put 8x plus 2 in y1 and 130 in y2. So I want you guys to take a minute and do that. So for x, we're going to use the xt1 button. So we're going to do 8x plus 2. Then we're going to arrow down and put 130. Okay? And then we're going to, now let's look at the graph. Okay, so there's the graph. Now, what do you think I don't like about this graph? It's small and it's jerky, but also here's something else I don't like. You see how, like, these two are closer together than those two? You see this? Like, they're not all the same distance apart. And, like, this one is a huge gap, and then there's, you see what I'm saying? Like, they're not the same distance apart, so it's not very precise. And in algebra, the two things that are most important are precision and taking precision, okay, being careful and being precise are the two most important things in algebra, okay? So, if I hit second graph, I can look at the table of values. Now, what sign do they have between them? Equal. So I want to find out, so this is y1 and this is y2, and it built this table for me. And y2 is all 130 because there's no x here, so it doesn't change. It's just constantly 130 because it's a constant, okay? So I want to find the row where they're equal because that's the solution, is where they're equal. So I'm just going to start scrolling down. And it's getting bigger, right? 98, 106, we're getting there. Oh, there it is, 16. So when x equals 16, y1 and y2 are equal. And the calculator showed me that. Now, if you solve this equation by hand, subtract 2 from both sides, divide by 8, you'll get x equals 16. Okay, hold on. All right, so that's about it. And again, the only thing, and I think I already showed you guys how to jump to a value. So, I mean, that's like the new stuff. And again, you didn't do much of this last year, but that's the new stuff we needed for the equations, for doing stuff in the calculator. Now, some of you are thinking, like, why would I do this? It's too easy, okay? But remember, this is just another tool that we have. If I asked you to go out in the backyard and dig a hole, what would you dig the hole with? Would you dig it with a spoon, your bare hands, or a shovel? A shovel, okay? You use the right tool for the job, okay? Yeah, if there's an equation and it's easier, it's faster to solve it by hand, then that's the shovel for that job. Now, if I'm going in the kitchen and I'm going to dig into a pint of ice cream, I'm going to use a spoon, okay? So you use the tool that fits the job. And sometimes this tool is fastest. Sometimes it's not. But we want to know how to use it so that when we do need to, that we can, okay?